Welcome to Turtle Island Voices, originating in the Treaty 8 territory of British Columbia, created by Kelly Smith and hosted by Tansy Friendship Center Society. We asked 6 people to share their journey. We heard different voices, similar views, and saw experiences through a different lens.
We would like to welcome Randy Gauthier. He is from the Treaty 8 territory of Northern BC. He's a renowned chainsaw carver and has proudly represented his talent and his nation throughout the world. Welcome, Randy.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me on the show. For those that do not know me, I'm a northern boy from Soto Indian Reserve, and I am a chainsaw carver. I am a world-class chainsaw carver, and I've competed all throughout Canada, down to the States a bit, and to Europe. So it's been a journey.
We're excited to have you participate with us.
All right. You explained our first question, what you do for a living. And I've been actually following your journey too. And I'm glad you're here with us. Why have you agreed to be interviewed?
I think podcasts are a great form of expression, if you will. Stories are good. Everyone's got a story. And I believe stories start with a journey. And there's so much to be learned from other people's thoughts and stories. And they all have a process that are involved in the story, if you will, which can and will include diversity and struggles, winning moments in life. There's just a whole lot that can be in a story, and stories are a great tool to be learned from. We always learn from the elders by listening to stories in the past, and if you actually paid close attention to them stories, and you actually listen, not all of us did, and I can be guilty of that, there was a lot to be learned, and them stories serve the purpose to help you fulfill their goals in a meeting that would make it easier for you if you understood them. Yeah, so those stories are, in my opinion, are something that is a lost tradition almost, and I think podcasts have a really good view and a really good way to express some of them stories, because all of them stories, they all come from life lessons and the journey that we took to get to where we are, or that we're taking to get where we don't necessarily want to be. That's, I think, one of the biggest reasons of wanting to be on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I can go delve farther into it. I just got to dig a little deeper. That's all.
You went into question 2, and I'll ask it. I only because you led into it with question 1. And I know we're going to be taking turns here. But how important is it that Indigenous people share their journeys? You touched on that a little bit, but you also said you could delve into podcasts and the importance of sharing your journey. In the first question, but do you want to expand a little bit more on?
Yeah, to elaborate a bit more, like we've all grown up with a certain amount of hardships, and we all have, I believe. And I really feel sorry for the people that grew up with zero hardships, because you just don't get to learn enough of life's lessons. In my opinion, I believe the harder journey you do take in life that not necessarily was you had a decision in, I think it really helps mold you to be a better person, to give you a lot more compassionate, to people that have less, or really allows you to put yourself in their shoes, if you will, so you can understand people a lot more. And I've gone through quite a bit of education growing up, because I learned from my own mistakes, pretty much. So I paid dearly for my education, because I did a lot of failing. But failing is okay, because success is part of failing, I believe. So stories, going back into the stories, generally a story or a storyline is not an empty conversation or empty words. There's always a lesson to be learned from stories, and there's always a purpose for a story, I believe, except for people that are just rambling on about nothing. And some people are very good at it. I know in my story, I've had a really tough time going into the work that I do. And I thought in 2 years that I could, comprehend it and I thought I'd be very good up with the pros, and that just wasn't the case. There were many times, but I was persistent. I went down to competitions, and I tried to hit as many competitions as I could. I was eager, I was ambitious, and mentally strong, thankfully. I've been to many competitions where I was just broken and broke down and broke, all of the above. So not knowing how I was going to get home, packing up all my tools at one event and not having enough to get not even a quarter way home or to the next event. But if you have a will and a desire and you believe in yourself, it always seems to me that something really does come to play in the end. It just doesn't always leave you stranded. As long as you believe in yourself, good things will happen. And that can take time. That does not come overnight. This is my take on stories. And the thing is with opinions and other people's views is the diversification of the stories itself. So I hope that gives a little bit of insight.
Yeah, thank you, Randy.
Yeah,
okay, who's next? An old timer from PG.
Oh, looking at Kelly Smith. Your turn there, Kelly.
How come I always get the tough questions?
Tough?
It's because they jam out on me, Randy, and put it all back on my lap over here. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh, we can take it.
That's okay. Thanks, Randy. I'm really happy that you're here with us. And I'm really glad that Ivan reached out to you, and hearing your story changes me, and it'll change other people too when they listen to this. It's inspiring, and that's why we want you here. Were you always proud to be Indian?
When I was younger and stuff, I didn't know any other way. Like I was always on the reserve, always in the bush and stuff. It seemed at that point that life was good, but there's a lot of things that, I don't know, maybe overshadowed. Going into the schooling system there was a change with that, not being able to write with left hand and stuff. It seemed like it had a different set of rules. It wasn't so bad because the school that I was at when I was younger was a majority of First Nations children. But there was still a little bit of a stigma there with the teachers. When I got older, a lot of that was taken away, like being accepted into, let's say, the European world. And I think, like in high school and stuff, different cultures, it was really tough because I was never really accepted as a person, like as an equal person. And I think that was really tough. But when I was amongst the right people, the right Native First Nations people, it was always good, always grateful. And we grew up with a lot of alcohol and stuff like I know I did. I wasn't proud growing up in that environment. But when you go to a powwow and you hear the drums and people are gathering and they're singing and they're in the regalia and they're proud, that's such an overwhelming feeling of pride. So it really does have its time. And then there's other times not so much. So it's yes and no. For the most part, though, I'm pretty damn happy to be who I am. It was just really tough growing up into a different culture that was not accepted of our people.
What was a major change for you, Randy? At like what point did you decide to just expand from where you were at? You said there was a lot of alcohol involved in growing up and stuff. And was there a catalyst that drove you to your life as a professional chainsaw carver?
I think change. I just want to change. I grew up with a lot of side effects from my upbringing, and I just wanted to do different things. I loved running chainsaw. I was running chainsaw since I was 17. Dangerous tree faller till I started chainsaw carving. And I had a fair amount of money to keep me going. I was carving along the countryside for a couple of years, and then I was broke. Then I became a starving artist. But I asked myself a serious question, and I had to answer it in a serious manner. And that was, okay, you've got a job here that's paying you very good money. I think my last paycheck was $14,600 for 2 weeks. And if I'm going to give that up to go carving, where do you want to be with that? So I gave myself an unrealistic goal of being a world champion in 2 years, and I didn't even know how to carve. So I hit it really very hard, and I just didn't give up in myself. And the first 2 years, I didn't do very well. But after that, I was starting to make a modest income of, I think my second year, I was at 50 to 80,000, which isn't too bad. And then it continually went up. But what I did do is I surrounded myself by the best carvers in the world. And I went to the events that they went to. And so I put my time in, and I had to get my mindset in tune with theirs. So that's where I was. And it was a really tough task. I remember being broke down on the middle of nowhere and just wondering if I was even going to get to the next event or get home, and broke like many times. But either you want it or you don't. And if you don't want it, don't work for it. And if you want it, it's going to take a lot of work. And that becomes a story in itself if you do succeed, right? Because you're overcoming adversity. And just if you really want to be successful, or if you really want to try be at a different level than where you are, you have to give up everything that's comfortable to you. You have to suffer. You have to go through it. If it's comfortable already and you want to stay in that comfort zone, you're never going to get to the top. Never. You have to really work hard and doubt everything and have goals and push hard. That's what I believe anyway.
I think they call that the secret. If you want to move ahead, you have to be willing to let go of what you're in and what's behind you and to move forward. Success comes with the willingness to take risks, right?
Yeah. Becoming,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, I remember when Randy got started there, and he was a couple of years there in Prince George. They had a chainsaw competition. I seen Randy. He flicked that quarter, and he said that's all he had left was a quarter and a broken down truck, and he didn't know he was going to make it to the next gig. There's something within Indigenous men that sparks. It just grows, and there's when they find that warrior inside. And they find that what you have to do in order to make those sacrifices to becoming the artist or the person that you want to be. And it's a lot. And because when the Creator has a calling on your life, it'll take you for a 360 degrees to what you were to becoming what the Creator has intended you to be. And you took that journey, and that's amazing, because a lot of people don't, because they didn't find that warrior, they didn't find that courage to listen and to be guided. And you did, and it shows in your work. And the beauty of it, is I see the Indigenous world in your pieces. And they're starting to even show more. And it's just amazing. You're bringing the culture to these pieces. And that's beautiful to see, a way of connecting to culture and actually sharing culture. And it's also teaching as well. So you're a teacher as well.
I can truly hope that I can, how do you say it, prove and show the younger generation, or anyone for that matter, that if they really want it, they just got to try. And Ivan was going back to that story where at 25 cents, and I recall I was hosting an event, and I had carvers coming in, and I was paying carvers to come into my event in Prince George. And I think it was in day 2 or day 3 of my event ongoing, and I was doing all of the work by myself. I believe I had 8 or 10 carvers from USA, Canada, I think from Japan, one coming from Germany. And I wasn't overly concerned because I got through the hump of day 2 or day 3, and that's all I had. I didn't even have enough to eat that night. So it was quite the run, and I pulled it off successfully. I didn't make a ton of money at it or anything, but it wasn't about making. It was just about trying and seeing if I would succeed. I paid for everything. I did everything on my own. I did get some sponsorship, a bit of sponsorship to help, but for the most part, all the logs and the appearance fees and stuff, I paid for most of it. So that was quite a trying time. I think even I slept in my truck the one night there. So
Hey, listeners. This is your host, Kelly Smith. If you're interested in joining an advisory committee that provides constructive criticism, feedback, and ideas for the content of Turtle Island Voices, we'd love to hear from you. Visit us at turtleislandvoices.ca/advise to learn more.
That was a story in itself, but we did it. It was in Prince George.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing, Randy. I had no idea that you did that down there. That takes some courage.
Yeah, that would never have come to light if Ivan, out of the blue, I don't even know how we connected, and I called and he put me with the right names and we made it happen. So it was a lot of work, and we did it for a couple of years, and it was really be careful what you ask for because it might come true.
That's right.
So,
what you think about, you bring about. Also the secret, right?
That was Christine. Yeah. She says, "Do you know Randy?" I said, "I know from Chetwynd." He said, "He's doing this, Ivan." He said, "Can you give him a hand? Can you do something? Can you help support him in some way?" It just turned out to be something special. There was nothing like that ever in Prince George. And Randy just lit that chainsaw up with the rest of the crew. And it was just a good time. It was a trying time, but it was a good time.
Yeah, we got her. Thank you, Ivan. That was really a time in my life to pull something like that off. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, Randy, that kind of leads us into the next question. Life's always filled with these painful lessons. And you mentioned that yourself, putting some distance between you and maybe some of those painful lessons that you've been through. Is there any that you can look back on and then you can say that you rely on them as a educational tool today, or to be able to share awareness, if that makes sense?
If I was to do things different and to learn on, is I would take a bit more time and do a process, take more time, think about it, write things down. And that's one thing I never have done. And I've never taken the time to weigh the pros and cons. I've always, when I thought I could do it, I would just dive into it and know that I could do it. And that's not always the best approach. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. And that's from failing or not planning out thoroughly. So I think if I was to plan things and not try and do everything on my own, I think you need people. Everybody needs people to help. And being too proud to ask for help is something that I need to stop doing maybe. And those are probably called personal problems. It's really tough to do everything on your own. And especially as you get a bit older, you just don't have the same physical abilities as when you were younger.
Yeah.
Endless energy is great. Yeah.
You're my kindred spirit, Randy. Somebody tells me I can't do something, I'll go do it.
Yeah.
Or if I want to know something, I just go learn it. The downside of not planning things ahead and finding failure quite quickly because of it.
I'm really, even now, hard pressed to ask for help or assistance. And there's a ton of people out there that want to, and especially for events or to improve yourself, to make yourself a better person. And for example, if I needed a boost in Chetwynd or my vehicle was broke down at home in Chetwynd, I wouldn't even know who to call. I really wouldn't. I would just not call anyone.
You can call me.
Like, how wrong is that? I would probably try not to be that person. I think we beat ourselves up too much all the time.
Yeah.
And life can have play funny games with you.
Yeah. So the lesson is don't be Randy. Make sure you ask for help when you need it.
Yeah. So sure, I'll go with that.
Okay. Sandra, you want to take the next set of questions there or the next one up on raising awareness?
You've already shared lots of your journey and how you focus and meet some of your goals. And in doing so, just that alone is very cultural in my opinion, because it's part about asking for help is a cultural thing that's ingrained in us at some point in our life. We actually, I think a lot of us Indigenous people learned somewhere along the road not to ask for help because we probably wouldn't get it. But you share that all the lessons that you've learned in your journey. What else do you do to support or raise awareness on Indigenous culture?
For me, as of lately, I've really taken a step back from all of media, social media, and even helping people. And I think maybe that's not a good thing. I think there was, not last year, the year before last, I donated up to $16,000 worth of sculptures and carvers for people that were in need, people that I didn't even know, and a majority of them were Native people, whether it was food, and the story would come up. I would do a carving, I would auction it off wherever they would be, and then I would have that money sent to them or the carving dropped off, and then they could deal with the transactions and stuff. I didn't do that for publicity or anything. I just did it because I was grateful to be not in the same place where I was. And I've taken a step back, and I was going through some stuff there the last couple of years when COVID first hit, and a bit of depression, and I was happy to get out of it. Like, I think I was fully out of it. And so I've been in depression for a while, and it's been a really tough struggle. I think 2 years ago, and I think last summer I came out, I did fully come out of it. I had a little relapse here a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad it was just very short. But that stuff never leaves you. I don't know if this is the right platform for that conversation, but I think I just needed a break from people in general. And I think once everything opens up, I'll be ready to go again. I really want to put more emphasis and effort on trying to be a better sculpture artist, finding my ability to just have more realism and do human anatomy, but I want to do traditional faces and stuff. So that's a really good question, Sandra. I'm not sure if I contribute a whole lot or not, and if I wouldn't even know where to start.
I think you are contributing just by living your life and sharing your story. So,
yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome, Sandra. That's one I've never really thought of, and I think I'll have to give that one a lot more thought of even after this podcast. So, thank you for that.
We put you on the spot a time or two here, Randy.
That's fine. That's what it's all about.
I really appreciate your honesty.
Really good stuff.
Yeah. And you're quite humble for such a talented guy. I feel your pain come through when you're talking, and I feel you struggling with your words, and I just appreciate having you here. So
it's all good.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a sap. So let me get moved on to the next question before I start crying again.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Get Sandra. It starts with Kelly. I go, and then Sandra, and then I'm just like,
then Ivan's got to join in there yet. What would you say are some leadership qualities of someone who wants to share the Indigenous worldview?
I think some of the leadership qualities, without a doubt, is kindness. And not with no judgment, and just having a kind heart, asking when you give to receive nothing back, and ask for nothing back, to give out a kindness. I think that's the most important. I think those are true actions that there should be more of.
Yeah, I think
that's probably the first and foremost.
I think true altruism is a rare thing, and that's giving strictly out of kindness and not seeking reward in return. What do you see as an uphill battle with raising cultural awareness? I know you keep busy, but I'm sure you don't have your head in the sand, that there's a lot of talk on the news and trying to bring awareness to the Indigenous worldview. So what's an uphill battle that we're facing here?
I think the uphill battle that we do face as a nation are people getting out there and chasing it and doing it. We have right now, more than ever, the biggest opportunity to get out there and fix that fight, if you will, or go into that battle prepared. There's almost an unlimited amount of funding for it if a person can tap into them resources. And that goes in with working with other people, working together. And that's, I think that working together is key. And it takes a younger generation to come up and become leaders. I think It's really tough for the younger generations in remote areas that have had poor leadership. So, because poor leadership is a reflection back on the community, I think poor leadership would be the biggest uphill battle. Good leadership, people thrive. I think there just needs to be communities working together better to pursue this stuff. I just don't know. In my eyes, I wouldn't know how to pursue it either. But I'm happy just staying solo to myself, sort of thing, because when I'm out there in the public, I am bombarded by thousands of people a month, and it's really nice to be back and grounded, if you will. So it gets overwhelming after a while, 8 to 10 months on the road. So this is nice. I'm really happy to be where I'm at right now on the country, on the lake carving. So it's awesome.
I know we talked about mentoring, and there's a discipline to what you do. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, from now?
I would like to take younger generations and children and stuff, or even taking one-on-one. I'm hoping that I don't feel like I'm a very good teacher because I don't know how to explain a lot, or I struggle with that. But I would like to try and get into that realm of doing some educational courses in art, or even maybe some speaking platforms, motivational platforms. But for my art-wise, I want to get to a point where my product is realism. And when I carve a human anatomy, a human figure, the face, legs, everything looks spot on. So that's where I'm concentrating on now, and trying to take a two-dimensional picture and turn it into a 3D piece of artwork. So I'm really trying to refine my artistic skills. And that takes a lot of time, and it's frustrating. You get a lot of time into a piece, and it just doesn't look right and stuff. And I think I showed you that native headdress I did last month. I took a break from. I'm never really happy with my work, so I'm always striving to do better. And that stuff takes time. That stuff takes, when you carve an eye out, you're not just carving an eye, you're actually carving the whole shape of the eye and trying to get that eye perfectly carved. Then you have to put it into the right perspectives, like where it sits in the face, and is it the right width apart? Is it the right height? So there's a lot more going on than just carving a face, if you will. So I really want to push into not hyper realism, but if I can get there, that would be something exceptional that very few carvers can do that. So that's where I'm working on now. I take a lot more time in my carvings now. And so that being said, I don't know how good I would be in a competition anymore. So, because I've taken a step back from quick carves. So it's all part of growing, I guess. And it's good to take a step back, take your time, try and refine your skills. And when things open up again, then I'll have to jump back into a different realm of carving. I don't know if I'll be doing competitions for much longer. I'll just see where I'm at, because things change on a year-to-year basis, it seems, lately for me. But we'll see what happens when we get there. But I just like to try and be a better person and try to help a bit more than I can. But right now I'm concentrating on getting better at my artwork.
I've seen the detail, and we've conversed a little bit about some of the meanings behind some of the totems and some of the reality of that in telling the story behind your work. That's so cool. And you went right to town right at the beginning. You hung around with the best carvers in the world. Your good friend Marina, I think her last name was Cole. Yeah, that she was a sculpturist, right? And she was just starting. Yeah,
we all started together in the same realm, and she is probably the best female chainsaw carver in the world right now. So the whole world is watching her. And actually, Ryan Billy, a good friend of mine from Edmonton, he was here carving with me here for a few weeks last year, came to my place, and he is probably the best chainsaw carver in the world. He does hyperrealism. There's nobody that can touch him when it comes to faces, and like the stuff he's done is just super incredible with the human anatomy. So it's really nice to be able to touch base with them. Good to have them guys on my side, that's for sure.
To see an Indigenous person in this chainsaw world is unprecedented, Randy. And it's unique. It's amazing. And you telling your stories behind your pieces is going to change the world. We are changing the world. I'm just excited to see what the Mighty Creator has in store for you next. I know I'm not going to get a quick carve on that $20 sign, so I'm looking forward to that one. There's a story behind
Oh boy, that's a good one. So I was, again, for some reason, I was doing an event or a show solo, and I didn't have any money. And then there was Ivan, and I borrowed $20 off of there. I don't know what the story behind that. It wasn't so pressing that I was that down and out, though. Maybe it was just a test. So we get a good laugh out of that one, though.
It sounds like you might owe him a quick carve of a feather or something there, Randy.
Something could definitely be done. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So tell me, so we're going to just pull back into raising awareness, and which you do by virtue of being you. So what's something everyone's thinking and nobody is saying in regards to truth and reconciliation?
If you could only read the minds, I think the reconciliation thing, the government uses that word excessively without action. And I think they're grimacing when they actually have to do something about it. I feel for the people that actually had to go through a tough time through it all. And that stuff goes generations down the line. It doesn't stop right there. I believe that stuff goes down the line, and it does have an impact on generations to come. And if you were brought up in a place where, unfair treatment, and then it will turn to booze and alcohol and stuff, and that stems generations, and you don't know how to look after the people that are in your household and stuff, and then all you're showing them are them traits, and that's all they'll know when they're growing up. And I think that, and I feel that I've seen that. So that's a really tough question. They're putting everything into programs that are inaccessible. I wouldn't even know how to go about, if I was a victim of it, how to go about getting help for it. I just don't know if I have the right place to answer that, or have the right words to answer that.
I think you answered it perfectly, honestly. And we've done a few podcast recordings over the last couple of weeks, and that's a pretty consistent answer. Hey guys, Ivan and Sandra, this is something that we hear time and time again.
I think reconciliation is so many things. But the most important thing is what you're doing right now, Randy, is role modeling and showing the people the way that there is a good way, and because you're a good guy.
Going back to a question about awareness, I was really on the fence of even posting anything about depression and where I was, because I know I have a platform of a lot of people following me and what have you, but I don't know if anyone wants to hear that story. I don't know if anyone wants to hear that I, really wanted to put a gun against my head last night and stuff. Those are very strong words. So how do you spread awareness through that stuff? Like, how do you say it? I just don't know how to share it.
Just you speaking about it, so many of our people are dealing with depression and grief and loss and suicide and everything. We have a lot of people on the street that are dealing with depression, end up on the street, and they're looking for something and looking to make a connection to something or someone. And I know that the most difficult months of depression are winter months, and because it's the time when we look introspection we look within inside of ourselves, and sometimes we get stuck there, we get blocked there. Because we're in the spring, we're trying to release ourselves into new beginnings and new things. And so depression is so much a part of everyday life in our people.
Yeah, it's a son of a gun when it comes back, but I think you pretty much nailed it right on the spot there with the weather and stuff. When the sun comes out, I feel good. As long as I'm working, I'm happy. I have to work every day. And that's me. That's just working with, it gives me a purpose.
I just want to say, Randy, thanks for sharing. Your story is very inspirational, and any of those doubts that you have about sharing culture and awareness, you're doing it. You're actually doing it, and you're sharing that story with us, and that's the most important thing. One other thing I want to add, because I just remembered this when you mentioned you had no idea where you would call if you did need help with respect to the residential school findings and that type of thing. There are places to call, and Kelly actually asked me for the numbers a couple of days ago to put on our website, so we're going to post those as well. But I think overall, Randy, you're sharing, and that's what, in my heart of hearts, that's what culture is about.
Yeah, this is a very good platform, obviously, for it. I would be hard-pressed to, I don't mind to talk about it through an open meeting such as this, but to actually reach out to anybody, it's tough, and I think that shows just from the time I've left how many suicides we've had back home with the community, and who did they feel like calling? And the question is probably nobody. I'm didn't know. I'll still never like any of my work, so it'll never be good enough. And I guess that's the smallest thing, and I should worry about. So, and I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's just a vehicle to move forward a little more, huh?
Yes, 100%. It keeps us artists moving. That's not good enough. It makes us do it again. That's not good enough. Let's do it again. That's what friends are for, Randy. When we're lacking certain characters in our personality, where we can't pat ourselves on the back, that's where our people come in and just hold us up a little bit. So for our listeners, do you have any parting messages or anything else you'd like to share?
I'd like to see people dream more and turn them dreams into reality. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see people fail a lot by trying to achieve what they wanted to. Because with failure becomes success. Success doesn't happen overnight, and those are wise words and true ones. It'll never happen if you don't take that first step forward. It's not going to happen for you. So I think the only way to get there is by getting it done yourself. And that's it.
Words of wisdom from experience.
Yeah. So it doesn't happen on the Nintendo 64 or whatever it is, or the Xbox. Or
wow, man, you're a few years behind. We're into virtual reality now.
Yeah, or whatever it is. I think what's out there now is a lot of computer and programming and stuff for the younger generations. And work also doesn't always have to be working in a mill or working in the bush or something. There's it's a new day and age now. Goals are attainable, right? I believe so.
Yeah.
Every goal is attainable. Thanks, guys. It's been pretty interesting. Kelly, thanks for having me. First and foremost, it's been my pleasure. I think the work you guys are doing here is really important, and I hope it reaches a lot of people. Thanks again.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, love you guys. Thank you guys so much once again. The honor has all been mine, and this has been really nice.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Randy. Take care.
Awesome. You guys take care.
See you soon.
See ya.
Hi.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Turtle Island Voices. For those of you who may be triggered by the information shared, please call the toll-free First Nations and Inuit Hope for Wellness helpline at 1-855-242-3310 or the Metis crisis line at 1-833-638-4722. You can find us at turtleislandvoices.ca, where our show notes provide more information from each episode. Please follow us on social media.